and welcome back to the Wise Lemon Podcast, episode 9. I know, 9, it's crazy. I can't quite believe it myself, and out of respect for the 9 episodes, and hopefully many more to come, I'd like to just kind of be very open and honest as far as, how this experience has been for me, compared and contrasted to what I thought it would be. First and foremost, I mentioned this in some earlier conversations, but I have always been, as my mom would say, a little ham for the camera. I've always loved, even when I was very, very little, to entertain, to engage, to put a smile on people's faces. And I've found, in my life at least, a lot of that has come through like over the top, exaggerating things, being the life of the party, bringing lots of energy, doing that kind of thing. And I've realized as I've done this a little bit more that I was tapping into something that brought me joy as a young man, as a boy growing up to be a man, and I may have lost it for a little bit, but now that this project has started back up and I'm really able to tap back into this kind of creative expression, it really made me, for one, almost like a little head nod to younger Zade, as well as understanding that we really don't change all that much. Let me explain. I'm 26 years old now, and throughout my life, I've been thinking about it, and I've thought about it several times, but when do you become the person that you are, right? There's not like a final form, like a Pokemon third evolution stage, you know what I mean? It's more so you're in a constant state of becoming. You're in a constant state of being shaped by your experiences, by the people you meet, and the conversations you have. And there's something about that I find to be very, very interesting, but at a very core level, when you've known somebody, and I've had this conversation with some good friends in the past, if you make friends when you're younger, say elementary school, first, second, third, fourth grade, fifth grade, even pre-K, even younger, you know who that person is fundamentally. Like, you saw the seed of the plant that they were going to become. You knew them before they were old enough or smart enough to put on a facade and to make maybe themselves be perceived a certain way. You see a very pure, authentic version of that person. That's one of the reasons why I love staying in touch with my old friends from the past, because I know you, dude. You know what I mean? It's like I've seen you grow up. I saw you get in trouble in second grade and how you reacted to that. And it's very revealing when you have relationships that you've had for a very long time, especially when those relationships began when you were children. And it's crazy now because I'm 26 years old, as I mentioned, but I have friends of mine who I could say, like, I've known this guy for over 20 years, which is crazy. It makes me feel very old when I say that, but it's true. And there's something about that that's amazing. And there's something about just like innocence and youth and the hope of what could become and the potential that may be fulfilled and it may not be fulfilled. But there's something kind of beautiful in that. Just the way that life works and the fate that people have. And, whether you believe in destiny or not, like what the path that is laid out for an individual looks like and how it affects them as a person. I've always been very fascinated with that. I mean, it's kind of been hand in hand with my fascination with like nature and nurture. Who are we? How do we become who we are? And just that idea is like we're in an ever state of becoming, and how malleable we are as human beings, as personas, as people. And the idea like you could really be whoever you want to be, but you can't just say it. You got to act on it, right? Actions speak louder than words. If you don't do the things you say you'll do, I mean, you could talk a big game, but at the end of the day, if you're not putting any shots up, you can't expect to make the team. So that is where I wanted to start, because I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and just the idea of like, when did I become like me right now? And you think about it, it's like you've always been in the process of becoming this person and at the simultaneously changing into the person you're going to be. You know what I mean? And my dad, growing up, he told me once that when you can look at yourself in 3 different ways, and when all these 3 things are aligned, then you're at peace. And it was how I see myself, how others see me, and how I wish to be seen. And a lot of that's outside of other people's control, most notably the last one, how others see me, how I wish to be seen. But when you're consistent in your values and your behaviors and how you are and who you are, a lot of peace comes from that. And I always loved it when he told me that, and I always thought there was a lot of wisdom to be gained there. So I just wanted to drop that off for you, see if it made a difference in your guys' life. But, think about that. Is that consistent? Do those stars align, so to speak? How I see myself, how I wish to be seen, and how others view me. Another thing I wanted to talk about is inspiration and the power of inspiration. And I was reading a book not too long ago, Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday. And in this book, they talk about a very famous composer, Mozart. And in this book, they talk about Mozart, and he would be, although he wasn't royal himself, would be mixing in with very affluent people, very important crowds. And there would be times where he would be struck like a eureka moment with musical inspiration. And during those times, what would he do? I'll tell you what he did. He would leave. He would run away from the conversation mid-conversation. Doesn't matter if he's talking. Doesn't matter if someone's talking to him. He would just bounce because he recognized that inspiration is fleeting and that those moments that life gives you, those little nuggets of gold that you think, oh, I'll remember this and I'll act on that later. Sometimes it doesn't come back. Sometimes it's a one-time sale only kind of thing, and if you do not grab that opportunity at that moment, it is forever gone. And there's something chillingly beautiful about that, almost like a sandcastle on the beach that just gets wiped away. There could be a beautiful thing there, but if you do not act on this, it could be wiped away tomorrow and it'll never come back, almost as if it never existed in the first place. And as a writer, as a painter, as just a genuinely curious and creative person, there was something that almost was beautifully and scary about that too, because it raised something in myself, because there are moments where I have ideas and there's certain things that strike me at a time, and I used to, more often than I do now, kind of put it to the side. Hey, I'll get back to that over the weekend or after work or after this meeting. More recently, ever since I've read that, I think I've been inspired in the sense that if something hits me, I drop what I'm doing and I solely focus on that for as long as it needs to be focused on. Because there is something about those ideas that I've recognized in my own life where I've had those moments where, I thought about something clever and then I try to remember it later on that day and it's gone. And I refuse to have certain thoughts vanish on me like that. There is something beautiful about writing in the sense that there is like a physical permanence to your thought, where in oral traditions and just speaking and listening, that isn't as concrete, and I've always really appreciated that. So, there's a lot to break down there, but what I would say is if you're inspired, if something hits you in the right moment, if your wisdom grants you the recognition to a great opportunity, and it's like, hey, this is a moment here, take this moment, take that moment. Because a lot of times this life's not a video game. There's not a lot of do-overs and redos and 3 lives. You got one. And I heard a beautiful quote once, and it was, live your life like it's your second time and you did it wrong the first. Nothing's worse than regret. And at the end of the day, say it. Do the thing. Try it out. Make the mistake. Even if it doesn't work out, at least you could say you tried. And when it comes to inspiration, too, I think there's a lot of people, for me, that inspire me in a multitude of ways, in a multitude of mediums. But I think it's always good to recognize that we stand on the shoulders of giants. A lot of people have lived on this earth, and hopefully a lot of people will continue to live on this earth after we have all left it. But there's something about the names, the faces, the people who have really made an impact in humanity, in our story as human beings, that we may take for granted, that we may not think about. Right now, we've always been very short-minded creatures, and people have a hard time planning 5-10 years in the future, let alone thinking about 20, 25, 50, 100-year plan in the future, or even looking backwards. And I'm a student of history. I love history, and when you look back at that and you recognize that's truly we stand on the shoulders of giants. You have your Da Vinci's and your Sir Isaac Newtons and people who have created vaccines and different ways of transmitting energy and allowing us to have light and all these miracles that you could say before people couldn't conceive of, and now they're just normal things that we do. The Wright brothers in flight. There's a lot of incredible inventions and a lot of incredibly brave and courageous and intelligent people that came that paved the way for the life of comforts that we live today. And I think one of the important things to keep in mind here, because it's not only good to just look back and be appreciative for these kinds of people and admire the human intuitiveness and potential and just the ability to change our environment, to make tools and to have those tools affect change at a large scale. That's amazing. But to recognize that we're not done with that we're still in the story of that process being written and that story being written, and that we have just as many geniuses around today who could do amazing and incredible things, especially with the tools we have access to, that is to be appreciated. Because if you think about it, and you think about all the incredible people that made our world so much easier, and just thinking about like what the future has to hold, I think it's an incredibly beautiful thing. And it's like, I'm an optimist, and I believe in the hope and promise of tomorrow when it comes to people, and that people will always strive to be better. And there is something incredibly exciting when you realize, wow, there's a lot that we've done, and there's still a lot that is yet to be done. And to engage in that next step and that next chapter with as much excitement and ingenuity and integrity as possible, I think is an incredible thing. So, if you're inspired, act on it. And, sometimes you got to appreciate where we're at and really like look at certain things in life and appreciate them for what they are. Because yes, you could be like, yeah, I learned that in third grade, but there's always a deeper story to understand the origins of an invention or who created this or what allowed them to create this. There's a lot of really beautiful stories out there, and our ancestors did a lot of great and incredible things. And I think sometimes I should just use I statements. I think sometimes I don't appreciate my ancestors enough, just in the sense of just like thinking about them, and being truly grateful for the sacrifices they made in the life that they were able to lead me to live eventually through their decisions. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And there's an incredible power in knowing your history and your culture, where you come from. Like growing up, I don't look maybe quote unquote Egyptian. My mom and my dad were both born and raised in Alexandria. But my mom's mom, my grandmother, Carol, I love you, Grandma Carol, if you're watching, and Auntie JoJo, their family was Irish Portuguese. And one of the things I love my Auntie Joanne, Auntie JoJo, we are very close. She's one of the most unique and special individuals I have ever met in my entire life. And one of the things that I really appreciate about speaking with her, and I hope everybody's family has someone like this, is she's almost like the family encyclopedia. She keeps the knowledge. She understands the dates. She knows the names. She knows where people went, where they go, their stories, what allowed them to be the people they are, the defining moments of their lives. And she's kind enough to share that information. And that is truly, truly one of the greatest gifts you could give somebody. Knowledge is power, and especially when that knowledge is about your family and the people that allowed to you being here, that's incredible. And growing up, I used to feel like, oh, I don't look Egyptian, and then I'd be in the States sometimes when people would be like, oh, what are you? What do you look like? And you almost feel like you're part of neither. But then as you get older, you understand, I mean, everybody is a mix of everything. In a sense, obviously not literally, but we've been around for a long time, and human beings move, they make stories, they change, they enjoy their lives, they have meals, they go to the other side of the world. And when you understand and you really know the names and the faces and the habits, are just your family, maybe a couple family lines down, a few generations back, but to know those stories, to know those names, I think is incredibly important. And for me, it's just allowed me to really be confident, have a high self-esteem, and understand that there's a lot of really incredibly talented, smart, hardworking people that ultimately led to me being here holding this microphone on this Sunday morning in 2026. And I think it's always good to keep that in mind and be wary of that, because it does not dawn on me that they may have lived much more challenging lives than we do now. And there's something about appreciating that, understanding that, and using that to come from a place of gratitude for what they've done and for where we are right now. Yeah. And the last thing that I want to say, no, actually, I think that is the last thing I want to say. Yeah. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I want you to think about it. Pursue knowledge. we're young, even if you're not as young, regardless of what age you are, there's always a path to growth. There's always room to grow. There's always things to learn. There's always people to meet. And I think more recently I've been moving from a place of gratitude, and I think a lot of people would do good to do that as well, because when you're grateful, you move with a different energy. You transmit a different frequency. People feel that. People gravitate to that. People like that. But stay curious. Enjoy the little things. And at the end of the day, man, never stop reading, never stop learning, and never stop sharing that knowledge, because that is what leads to a better tomorrow. That's The Wise Lemon, episode 9. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll be back next week.